Welcome to Mark My Words, a show that searches for the fork in the road in life, the place where the turning point in the journey of entrepreneurship and life can be found. Let's meet each other at the crossroads on Mark My Words. When I see a potential guest who has the title of Chief Consciousness Officer, that is something that grabs my attention right away. And after just doing some of the research that I have done on Charley Johnson, who is a Chief Consciousness Officer and is just consciousness training. So maybe he can fill in any blanks that I'm missing on anything else there, but I just want to introduce a little bit of what Charley is about. He is, as one of the world's first chief consciousness officers, certainly one of the first, if not the first I've ever heard of. He wants to connect with forward-thinking companies who want to own the future of rapidly changing of a rapidly changing world of business and humanity. I know he talks a bit about AI, and I gotta read this off of his profile too. And he's gonna say a lot of really brilliant things similar to this, I'm sure. But knowledge is structured in consciousness. Every single piece of knowledge ever learned, read, thought, created, taught came from consciousness. And imagine having more people inside your organization with a higher level of consciousness. Also notice clarity can remove the division and blind spots our conditioning has created within our own minds. That's coming from this man, definitely not me. I'm not smart enough to think or talk like that, but I love the way this man thinks. Charley Johnson, I'll stop talking. Welcome to Mark My Words. How you doing today?
Good, man. Thanks for having me on. Thanks for helping spread the word about this position. And there was one lady that is the world's first. She did it about 10 or 12 years ago. 3, 4 months ago, I was talking to a friend and this position popped in my head. I was very excited about it, thinking I was the first. And then I found out about her. But I've connected with her, spoken with her a few times, and she did it a little prior to when people were ready. She did have an organization that she worked with that I think it lasted for about 18 months. Um, but I think the world, actually, I know the world is ready because guys like you and a lot of these podcasts that have been happening in the last couple of weeks, they're admittedly saying that we would have not had you on 3 months ago. So the people are talking about how quickly time is speeding up. The days go by, the weeks go by, the months go by. Well, that's because the construct of time on this planet is shifting. So going from chief consciousness officer to we would never have that individual on to now everyone is excited about it. So that's a great thing, which shows me I would assume there's going to be a decent sized company that's going to probably hire someone or me very, very soon.
So you said two things there that really make me think about just the way life is. So just when you think that you are like the only one or at the top or whatever, there's always one other person who is right there,
Yes.
either first or
Yes.
doing it first or whatever. And secondly, I would have had you on 5 years ago. I started doing this 5 years ago, and I'm not here to ever say that I have the deepest mind in the world or anything like that. But this kind of thinking and just thinking about the world, the universe, consciousness, etc., it really fascinates me. So let it be known if they wouldn't have had you on 3 months ago, I would have had you on 5 years ago. So
Beautiful. Good to know. Good to know.
it just speaks to, sometimes you just gotta keep going in the journey of life before you find like your place and your people, and not to really get into that too much at the moment, but Yeah, and it just amazes me. It makes me think of my own journey and how I'm still trying to find my way. But as you go, you find those little pieces and you start generating that interest. You meet more of like quote unquote your people. And I don't know if that has much to do with consciousness, but I find it to be true in life.
It has everything to do with consciousness. The reason being is everything physical and non-physical is consciousness. So businesses, people are thinking that consciousness is finally being brought into business, but it's been there forever. We just have not paid attention to it. It's kind of like the wise fish swimming through the ocean passes by two young fish and says, "Hey, hey boys, how's the water?" And the two young fish look at each other and say, "What's water?" So that's you, that's me, that's your listeners. The water is consciousness. You and I and everyone listening is swimming in consciousness. We are it. That's consciousness is starting to be understood as fundamental to our reality. Everything physical and non-physical, everything universal, everything planetary, human, animal, planets, mountains, everything that's matter. You talk to very high level teachers, you talk to very intelligent people who start to understand things. Consciousness is fundamental to our reality. It is everything. And there's some that still believe that the brain creates consciousness, but that's kind of like going into your car, listening to the radio and thinking the band that's inside the radio. Um, and the the best example of that is you have tens of millions of individuals across this planet, across every religion, across every belief, across everything you could think of that have had near-death experiences, if not more. And they all talk about the same thing. And a lot of them talk about being, the machines they were hooked up to, heart stop, brain, no brain act, they were dead. But they could tell you everything that was going on within that surgery room or within that doctor's room. They could hear the doctor, they could hear their family, they could hear everyone crying. So if consciousness was created by the brain and there's no activity to the brain, how are they able to see that? How are they able to come back and blow the minds of everyone in the room? It wasn't a dream. It's because consciousness was there before the body was created. It's there after the body was created. The brain's merely a receiver, which then leads to why I believe we need to bring more consciousness, or at least the understanding, into businesses, because all we've ever used is the mind. The mind is merely the middleman, and look at the world we've built with it. It's a little chaotic. It's a little divided. It's a little conflicted. And to say little is a massive understatement. So tapping into the source, which everyone can do at any level of consciousness, allows them to take their awareness and expand it, helps them become less divided, less conflicted. So we need to just bring more awareness to that everything is consciousness so everyone can start tapping into it.
I totally agree with you. And don't get me started on NDE stories. Man, oh man, I could listen to and talk about that topic for hours. I've never had one, but I find them extremely fascinating. Before we really dig into this topic, tell me how you get into becoming a consciousness, chief consciousness officer. I had to go back and read that. That's how rare your position is. And I know you're going to say something, sorry.
No.
Was this something that you were like always interested in, just in life?
No, you've got the stories we always listen to, like a LeBron James or someone that knew from an early age what they would be, right? Most of us have a very windy path that ends up in a spot that we would have never imagined. So I was born and raised in Utah. As most people know, Utah's very religious, very Mormon. I was neither. I wasn't atheist. I wasn't Catholic. I wasn't Buddhist. I wasn't for religion or against it. It just was not in my family's perception. It wasn't a thing. It really wasn't like we're not going to go or we should go. It was just not a thing. It just wasn't a thing. And that paid dividends, it was a very big deal for when I got older and crossed paths with my teacher. But I'll get to that in a sec. So I grew up in Utah. I didn't do well around kids my age. I was offered a job at 16 to be around adults in a corporate setting. I jumped at the chance because that kept me away from school. I mean, I graduated and everything, but it kept me away from having to do typical kid stuff, dances, hanging out. I loved being around adults. And because I had no background in business, I was a sponge. So if anyone was talking, any executive, any manager, anybody, I would sit and listen. And I just had no issue being the most, the most ignorant one in the room. I just absorbed it. I had a knack for business. There was a CEO that paid attention to me and gave me some opportunities that I didn't expect. I started building confidence off that. She passed away when I was 22. Another guy in the organization that was with me is a little bit older. He and I were basically kind of running the company, or so we thought. Everyone was there. We just expect, she passed away and we took over 2 days later. She passed away on a Saturday. We took over on a Monday. Blissfully, blissfully ignorant to what we needed to do. We did everything. We did sales. We did marketing. We traveled. We pushed and pushed and pushed because that's all we knew. We needed the world to know who we were. And we had a great time with the business. We did quite well. And then after flying almost 2 million miles, I developed a fear of flying. So this is my first understanding of the universe before I really knew. So that developing of the fear of flying dissolved as soon as I finally left the business after pressure to leave a month later. So it had nothing to do with flying. It was just the universe saying, I need you to leave this business behind. And I know how much you love it. I know how much you love the culture. I know how much you love safety and security. You're not going to leave unless we do something drastic and force you. Well, the universe is always batting 1,000, as you know. So I left, got involved with the Pay It Forward Foundation, the book and the movie. Got tens of millions of people involved with that. That was fun. During that time, this is going to lead to the position. I crossed paths with a very enlightened, intelligent teacher. And again, I had no construct of religion or spirituality, no construct of the path, a teacher, right or wrong, any of that stuff. I understood self-development because everyone was doing that, right? Tony Robbins and Jim Rohn, all those guys. Every time I crossed paths with an individual like that, when I was seeking help, they couldn't help me. And luckily, one of them was kind enough to say, you don't want what we have. You need something deeper. You need a teacher. I was like, oh, okay, I'll take that advice because it's not working. So tell me, like, what is a teacher? What do you mean by a teacher? I thought you were a teacher. You were a coach. Like, what? She didn't really know where to guide me, but it did lead me to an older gentleman that I met. He came up to me in the sauna at a gym one time and said, I feel like I've known you from a past life. And that was the thing that cracked the dam because I've net a past life. What in the hell are you talking about? Well, he started to talk about that. He didn't have any family that thought like he did, so he just loved being around me. I loved being around him because he had books telling me about meditation, past lives, all this high level stuff. And then he had me cross paths with someone who taught meditation. Again, not knowing that word or anything. And then after I learned that meditation, me being me in my business sense, I looked at him and said, there has to be something else other than meditation. And he said, well, there's quite a bit, and there's a guy that knows it, but I haven't sent him anyone in over a decade. I was like, well, okay. He's like, I said, why? Well, I don't want anyone to waste his time. He's a very special individual. I said, you've seen how aggressive I've been with you. Do you think I'm going to waste his time? He's like, no. I met him the next week and I had a picture on my phone of Steve Jobs because I was a business guy. I loved all of the books. When I met my current teacher for the first time and he opened the door, he was the spitting image of Steve Jobs. So again, the universe had me looking for someone, but it wasn't Steve Jobs. It was this guy. Um, and because of what I told you at the beginning, where I didn't have a religious background, he had nothing to strip out of me. He didn't need to get Buddha out of me or Jesus out of me or atheism out of me or Catholicism or Mormonism. He had nothing to strip. So I was just this sponge like I was in business. So he had me read a ton of books. Now, everyone thinks he had me read a ton of books to learn. He had no interest in stuffing my head full of more knowledge. He wanted to show me that all of these books were coming from the same source, saying the same thing, leading to the same place, just in different language. He wanted me to get to this point where I'm talking to you, where I have a neutral standpoint, where I'm asking the question, why are Republicans and Democrats fighting? Why are Catholics and atheists fighting? Why is no one understanding it's just heads to the tails of the coin? Why is the entire world killing each other and dividing each other and in conflict with each other over the same shit? So he did such an incredible job with that, which then led to this. And it's just recent, but I understand consciousness very well. Um, I've helped quite a few people along their path, which is one thing. But the one thing I've missed is I want to go to the office. I'm a Virgo. My life design, all that stuff says I'm good around people. I want to go back into business like I have been a few times with nonprofit or the corporate. I want to be around a large organization. I like to be around people. I like to be around executives. I like to be around customer service. So that's where Chief Consciousness Officer came from. You've got conscious capitalism. You've got Whole Foods, John Mackey, all that. But Chief Consciousness Officer came about because the shift on this planet currently happening has never been experienced before. And the only proof of that is to look at the world. How chaotic it is, how divided we are, how much we're fighting, how many wars, how conflicted, all of that. Well, that's not a mind thing, that's consciousness. So having the neutrality in a divided world, having the clarity in a very busy, chaotic world, I personally can't imagine anything more important for an organization than someone with that combination of skills.
I feel like having your skill set and your mindset is definitely not common in corporate America or probably in business at all. And I mean, you're talking about a mindset, everybody is focused on what they have to do, what they have to accomplish. I don't feel that anybody is really thinking about like the bigger picture as far as like, you know, just being enlightened and how consciousness can apply to the day-to-day world. You even said that, if I'm understanding correctly, that you've never even thought about like past lives and things like that until that moment. And I found that really interesting because I feel like pretty much since I can remember, not that I necessarily could understand or knew that, what exactly I was thinking about, but I feel like I've always had some kind of like sense and touch with like, past lives and why I'm here. Because with me being born with cleft lip and palate and having some of the obstacles and challenges that I've had, I've often thought about, especially as I've gotten older, was this something that somehow I chose? Did I choose this life? Did I choose to do all this and to put myself in this position? Because don't get me wrong, I love who I am and, it's great. But I'll tell you, if you knew all of the issues beyond just the cleft lip and palate that were associated with the syndrome I was born with, you'd be like, who in the world was signing up for that? Well, there must have been that's where I'm like, I wonder. I mean, yeah, it's possible that it could all just be, it could just be what it is. And this is just the card I was drawing, but I really just have this sense that there's more to it. And you even, as you were talking, I couldn't help but to also think about like the deja vu moments I've had. There was a really strong one when I first started like my first real job, like after my internship. And I just remember being there. It was almost like a movie frozen in time moment where, and it just kind of jolts you mentally, and you're just like, I've been here before. I know I've been in this moment. And I could go into parallel universes. We could have like a whole like 20-part episode of this. But yeah, I it just really got me thinking about all that.
Well, so I need to get better at I need to write this stuff down because there's about 3 or 4 points in there. Let's go with the beginning of past lives when you talked about that, because that's the first thing that came out after I was done talking. So the one thing I'd like to clarify is this position is not spiritual. And that's one thing that I've got to be very clear with because organizations have done the wellness programs and they don't really work out that well. CEOs don't really care for them. HR is forced into them. A chief consciousness officer is not a wellness program. No meditation, no mindfulness. That stuff can stay. They can actually make whatever is been implemented in the company 10 times better because they can understand it very, very highly and very clearly. But we're going to shift the consciousness of everyone in the organization. And some may be going from third to fourth grade, some from junior high to high school and vice versa. But it won't be a spiritual thing. It'll just be an expansion of awareness, right? So it's not spiritual, it's tactical. It's always been there. Secondly, did we ask for this? Well, you and I both know that the near-death experiences, when they come back, most of them talk about that we chose this. And that cannot be spoken about to, you just got to read the room, right? If someone has just gone through absolute hell and just something horrific that you don't think would ever, no one, you can't say that, right? I would never say that to someone who'd been through abuse or something like that. But you, because of what you've been through, because of the near death, like the stuff that you're interested in, you kind of understand that that is actually probably something you did, right? We've got this soul contract or whatever it is. And I've always said that there are times, many times actually, that I'd love to go talk to my soul and just kick the hell out of him and say, why did you choose this? Because there are times there's certain things that a lot of people go through, and we always want to choose the other side, or we always look at other sides as easier. But mine was never physical; mine was always mental, and that's not fun. It's not fun what you went through. It's not fun. It's not. I don't think anyone truly has fun in this life all the time. There are a few who hit the karmic lottery. Maybe they chose to take a life off, like the Dolores Cannon talks about. They had such a hellish life before, or maybe they've got really hellish one next. This one, they just want to take it easy. When you look at the universe that way, you really start to have compassion and empathy for what's going on. You start to understand, yeah, it isn't fair. Some people it's fair to, some people it's unfair to, but when you hear time and time again the same stories being talked about that we chose this, I would agree with that. I've been around too many people, too many near death experiences, too many people who can do things that defy the laws of physics, the Akashic records, everything. They all say the same thing. They just all say the same thing. But this position, I think with the shift of consciousness happening on this planet, there's going to be more employees, more people in the organization that will be interested in this. How cool would it be to have someone on staff who understands it at an incredibly high level? And it's not spoken about in meetings or when you announce something. It's to the side. It's at the watering hole. It's with customer service. It's Susie who says, you know what? I haven't even told my husband this, but I see angels. And someone like me who's incredibly neutral and says, that's cool. She's like, oh, you don't think I'm weird or it's magical? No, if you understand consciousness, they're all right here. It's just a different dimension. That's cool. Oh, and by the way, Susie, you know the guy you don't get along with, Ed, because you're a Republican, he's a Democrat. He sees things and hears things too. Really? Oh, okay, right. I mean, and in organizations, most executives nowadays have done some type of retreat, ayahuasca retreat, psilocybin retreat, 10-day silent retreat, meditation retreat, that they don't like. It's not something they can discuss in corporations, right? Because of religious beliefs or political beliefs. It's just not their time and place. Imagine having someone like me on staff that can help continue to guide. Because most people who do those have crazy, great experiences, and then they don't have anyone to talk to. Again, imagine having someone on staff like that. Imagine having someone who has the business experience to help them create strategy and increases their chances of solutions and answers by 100% because they don't have a dog in the fight. They're not divided or conflicted. They're not Republican and hate Democrats, vice versa. Someone who can help with clarity, someone who can help with anything they've experienced in this world, someone who can be that neutral white wall that allows all of the walls and the fears and the insecurities to come down for them to be authentic. Because that's what businesses are really wanting nowadays, especially employees. They hear their manager say one thing and they know that's not what they're saying. And the bullshit meter for individuals on this planet is increasing by the day because of the shift of consciousness, which is raising clarity.
So, first of all, I'm glad that I said everything that I said before because I think that was beautiful the way that you said, you know what, this is not spiritual. That's not what I do. So, I feel like that was great to kind of like get more clarity on that. Not that I really thought that, it just kind
Mm-hmm.
of got me thinking.
Yeah,
And that's always a dangerous direction for me because I could go on and on and on.
I could
But
too.
uh, one thing that I am, so you talk a lot about like political conflicts, like not just inner office politics, but actually like political view conflicts and how they interfere with how people relate and work with each other.
Yes.
And I guess maybe for me, I'm definitely like a middle of the road person and I try to just listen and adapt and I'm very adaptable and all that stuff. So maybe it's just a different viewpoint for me. But what what's your approach day to day as far as working with companies and individuals to bridge gaps and to just make their work culture or processes or whatever the issue is? Like, what do you see?
Just bringing awareness to it. So again, reading the room, if a chief consciousness officer may not say a single word in a meeting, may not say a single thing to a certain executive or a VP, they may just listen to be an open space. But when it comes to the Republican and Democrat stuff, if there's division and conflict within an organization or a team, which there always is, a chief consciousness officer has the neutrality to talk to that person off the side or after the meeting in a very neutral way, like a legit neutral way, not a boss saying, I'm not going to judge you. I'm not going to fire you. I don't care what you believe. Because they do. If you've chosen a side, you do care, whether you unconsciously or subconsciously believe that. So when you go up to someone and say, Hey, Susie, I really, what's going on? Why are you so, what does Ed trigger you for? Or whatever it is. When they have the true neutrality and they can feel it, because it's an energy thing and everyone can feel it, they're going to tell you their honest truth. I don't like Ed. I mean, he's a Trump guy. Oh, okay, okay. And I'm assuming you're a Democrat. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Someone like me can say something like this. Well, you do realize he believes you're just as wrong as you believe he is. Well, that's crazy. That's crazy. No, no, you're just the heads to the tails of the same coin. Have you ever asked yourself, where did the coin come from? Have you ever asked yourself that you want to leave the world better for your kids and you need to do that without division and conflict, right? Yes. Well, you're creating just as much division as you believe he is. Now, they're not going to change their beliefs. It may even, in a sense, kind of irritate them, but because it's a neutrality and they understand my position, they understand that I'm not choosing sides. They may not agree with it, but the seed's been planted. And you know as well as I do, the universe is the best gardener in the world. It's going to water. And next time Ed says something, she may be less triggered, and vice versa. It's just a very simple thing that I was always doing in my first business with Pay It Forward, with people I knew in my life, my soccer club, anyone I was with, family, anything. I never understood why I was neutral and why I could talk to people about everything and no one ever got mad at me or I never argued with them until I started to understand my teacher and consciousness and everything, which, like the universe does, it put me here. As difficult as it's been, uh, we need neutrality. I know the great quote is if you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything. Well, uh, how's that working for everybody? How's the division? How's the conflict? How's the wars? How are the chaos? How is the like how are we all feeling right now? It's not good. It's not the best. It's kind of getting worse. Again, neutrality. But I think you mentioned it earlier. That's a unique thing for people to wrap their mind around because their conditioning and conditions and constructs has always made them choose a side. So just like a visionary, just like a CEO, like those guys, those individuals that can see the future, they may not understand what I'm trying to do or the position or what I can bring to the table, but I'm assuming, actually I know it's going to be very soon, someone's going to take a chance and they're going to see the profound impact of just having someone like me on staff, what it does to all of their employees, how it helps HR hire different people, how it helps the executives be less conflicted, how it helps internal conflicts within teams be minimized when someone is able to point out both sides without picking a side and kind of causing more division. I I think it's more important now because of consciousness and the shift than it was when technology took over companies and they started hiring CTOs.
I'm starting to think, based on everything you're saying, that I may have missed my calling here because I feel like you're in no jeopardy of me becoming a third or fourth uh, chief consciousness officer in the world. I can tell you that because I don't really believe myself to be quite on the level that you are on. But I definitely have spent my life being in the middle on a lot of issues and a lot of conversations and just the I could as soon as you said that you may not even say a word in a meeting, I could totally 1,000% see myself being that person because
Yep.
that's I don't know if it's just because of the path that I've had where people have kind of brushed me off or didn't fit in. And I know that you talked a little bit about how you felt a little bit out of place just within your school career and how all of this kind of found you within your journey. And although I did kind of feel like I had my moments and found my friends here and there and my place to be in for a while, I always kind of felt the same way. Like it's amazing how much I'm really like relating to your path and your journey. I did not expect that coming into this because I've always been that person where if I'm around somebody who's very Republican or, conservative, I am just along for the ride. I'm listening. If there's a conversation between two that are just saying things that I don't even believe or whatever, I'm just there. And the same thing can go for another side or whatever. It's just amazing to me. And I feel like I think to your point and your purpose, and I'm not here to be political, which is something I always try to advertise. Again, me staying true to that middle ground, but I can't understand sometimes why people, especially in this century, why they're having such a hard time finding like that common ground and why it gets so harsh because I feel like we're all more alike than we think.
Yeah, I agree. And it's like the fish in water because what you said is not rare, right? We're all it's we got one race, it's humanity. It's not about the color of your skin, it's not about your beliefs, it's not about your political views. It's not about any of this stuff. And Republicans say that in a kind way, Democrats say that in a kind way. Catholics say that in a kind way, so do atheists. But our conditioning creates such a blind spot for us to understand that we say that, but we don't really believe that. Our actions don't back that up. And if you don't agree with that, you just need to look at the world and how conflicted and divided it is. Everyone has great stories. Everyone loves their family. Every side believes the same things, just with again just a different slight perspective, and everyone wants to do good things and leave the world better because they existed. But basically, all we're doing is bringing to the awareness that we're all causing the division that's creating the conflict that we don't want anymore. So someone's got to bring that to their awareness.
Well, how, other than being on Podmatch and doing a podcast with somebody like me, how would somebody find a chief consciousness officer to help them to deal with some of these issues?
It's got to start somewhere. So, I've been doing quite a few of these. I've got a dozen, maybe a dozen or 2 dozen more to do over the next couple of weeks, month or so, and they grow every day. Um, like they said in the movie Moneyball, the first one through the wall is always going to be a little bloody. So I appreciate someone like you allowing more and more people to hear about this. I post a lot on LinkedIn. I talk about it to anyone I cross paths with. If people ask questions of what I do, that's what I talk about. It just starts to get into the psyche. And if there's ways to get more exposure, I would be all for that. I'd love to get into some big business magazines, just anywhere where entrepreneurs, CEOs, executives are paying attention to let them know that this position's available, because there are more individuals out there that have a business background, that have had some time with a very, special teacher, and have chosen not to leave the world behind. And that unique combination of skills is exactly what the business world needs. And like we spoke about earlier, this is not a spiritual tactic. This is not a wellness program. This is someone who would have the understanding and would be able to speak the lingo of business, would still be about making the business grow, about profit, about making the employees be better. It wouldn't be about tearing down the system or coming in and changing everything up. It'd be about enhancing the system we have and allowing that to grow with the clarity of every employee within the organization.
So they define conscious as aware of and responding to one's surroundings, that they're awake. So how do you help people to be more awake and to actually like respond to their surroundings, just respond in a different way?
Just by what we're talking about. It,
Just
but truly, like, hey, Susie, I know you're Republican and you hate Democrats, but Democrats hate you just as much. Yeah, I don't care about that. But no one's ever brought that to their attention. Now, I know we think we have, but we haven't. We're talking about sides continuously. All we're talking about is how the other side is wrong. No one's ever said, well, the other side thinks you're wrong as well. No one's ever planted that seed. I know everyone thinks we haven't, because look at the world. Then you bring in levels of consciousness. You bring in clarity. You start to help them. You just basically, everyone's here because of their conditioning, because this is how we learn. And then someone says something that they can't unlearn or unhear, and it just slowly starts to expand. Like if you're here this whole time and that's your entire perception of your world, and someone helps you naturally do this, you're going to see different things. You're going to feel different things. You're going to ask different questions. When that happens, you evolve. You have more clarity. You have a level of consciousness that increases, and it's going to be subtle. It's going to be going from third to fourth grade. But in fourth grade, we were better at math than we were in third. So in fourth grade, we're going to be better at life and less divided and conflicted than we were in third grade. So it's just this subtle shifts, but it's just someone very simply explaining to them consciousness. So when you looked up conscious, people confuse those two. Conscious is you and I right now. Like, oh, I was playing soccer and I hit someone's head. I'm unconscious. Or I think Salesforce did chief conscious officer, but it had nothing to do with what you and I are talking about a couple of years ago. Conscious is I'm aware. I understand you. I'm listening to you. Don't the senses. Consciousness is all of the things that make up the senses, that we see, that we touch, that we taste, that we feel. Consciousness is fundamental to our existence. It is everything physical and non-physical. So those two are drastically different. And again, that's what a chief consciousness officer would do. Bring that to the attention. And then we're always talking about expanding awareness, but then as you asked at the beginning, how do we become more profitable? How do employees enjoy their job more? How is there less burnout? How is there less stress? How is there better decision making, less time wasted? That's the very strategic, tactical thing a chief consciousness officer would do. Because as a prime example, most meetings that I ever went to with a bunch of executives would be 6 or 7 executives, male and female, who would basically all ask the same question, answer it the same, but in different verbiage, and everyone thought they were getting their voice heard. Well, I just grabbed the CEO after one of our first meetings and say, you do realize you just spent an hour talking about the same thing with 6 or 7 people so they get their voice. We could have finished that in 5 minutes. You got your answer in 5 minutes. Why are we wasting 55 minutes? Simple stuff like that. Simple stuff of if you're here, the same mind that created the problem can't solve it. And then you've got someone who's got clarity of everything. And the CEO's here and he can be Harvard trained and 160 IQ, but his ability to have the solutions are very limited. Someone out here can look at him and say, I know this looks like a very difficult situation, a different problem, but have you thought about this? And he or she will be like, whoa, just different thoughts, different views, different perceptions, different questions, different viewpoints. That simple understanding is basically like having a teacher on hand inside your organization. Someone who sees things in a more grand scale, in a different perspective, and is open to everything and doesn't have a dog in the fight, is not alienating 50% of the solutions because everyone's Democrat and he's a Republican.
That's
That just,
amazing.
yeah, it increases everything for everyone in the company.
I also like making mistakes on this show because as we're talking, I looked up consciousness definition, which is something I wanted to do beforehand. I didn't have enough time. So I looked up and it defaulted to conscious. And I'm like, well, I'll go off of it. And you corrected me because as I was getting to the right definition, I'm like reading it. I'm like, oh, this is everything he's saying right now. Like,
Yes.
this is that's what it is.
Yep. So there we go. That was perfect.
And that I didn't do that on purpose. It's obviously I'm trying to keep the flow going and trying to listen and I'm like, oh, I'll do this. And yeah, I love when that happens. And
Yep.
that's what happened earlier too. And I'm like, yes, I actually like messing up because then I think it brings a better explanation, at least for me. I don't know if it's not bringing it out for anybody else. I guess they can go elsewhere, but hopefully it helps everybody. But the one thing that I was thinking about is you've used the word evolve quite a bit, and I feel like getting somebody to evolve or just somebody being aware enough to evolve is probably not an easy thing for a lot of people. I know for me, even somebody who's open to evolving, it's not always easy to do. So I feel like I may or may not know the answer to this based on our conversation, but are people like aware that you're there to try to help them like evolve? Like, what's the feeling behind that?
No, I trying to like coming in and saying that we're going to help everyone evolve probably puts a lot of walls up for individuals. So I think it's just more about helping them understand that they have access to something they thought they never had access to. Customer service to the secretary, to the VP, to the mid level, letting people know what consciousness is, letting them know that they have access to it, letting them know how powerful it is for them to better their lives, pay their mortgages easier, be better for their kids, be better for their team. And then when you come in again neutrally and you don't really have authority over any organization or any part of the team, you just, reporting to the CEO, people will feel the neutrality and they'll be open with you. And then you can talk to them. And again, it's not getting them on the spiritual path. It's not telling them to meditate. It's not helping them evolve. It's just being the open space. Because when you're the open space, they naturally will evolve. When they bring down their own walls, their own fears, their own insecurities, they're going to be more open. And when they're more open and they get to express themselves authentically, they naturally evolve on their own. Right? That's our best teacher is ourselves. And that's a lot of stuff in the last 20 years. There's been a lot of spiritual escapism. Nowadays, the seeking an outside authoritative figure to give us the answers is kind of, in a sense, dissolving. More and more people are looking to themselves for the answers. Well, the same mind that created it can't solve it. But if there's someone in the organization that's helping them shift their mind, expand their awareness, then it isn't the same mind. It's a more expanded mind. They're going to have different answers and they're going to evolve on their own.
You know, if you came to me at my company any time in my career and you said that, okay, today we're all going to evolve, I would be one of the people that'd be like, yes, I want to evolve. Let's do it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So basically, putting that aside, um, just do you usually come in and there are like problems? Are like the company's like numbers down? What is it beyond just like numbers or day to day? I know we talked a little bit about that differing like viewpoint politically or maybe even just as a person, maybe where you're from versus where somebody else is from. But what other kind of things do you get brought in to help with?
Stress, burnout, HR, turnover, a CEO that understands, maybe they understand consciousness and they're looking for like a secret weapon. They're looking for someone by their side that can give them the clarity and a understanding and basically open up channels that no other executive can. So it's a combination of everything. I think more and more organizations are seeing that what they've done in the past isn't working because there's more division and conflict. I think the wellness programs have been okay, but it's not doing what they thought they were going to do. The coaches and the consultants that come in, they're very specific. You know, it's like a sales consultant or a numbers consultant or a marketing consultant, and they kind of come in and go. I think what people are going to start understanding, just like the people who said they wouldn't have me on the show last 3 months ago, I think companies are going to look for something different. They're going to look for a position. They're going to look for someone to come in and help them, in a sense, create a roadmap for the shift happening on this planet because there's a lot of things that are coming into the psyche of individuals, such as like the pyramid stuff. Like you and I, and a lot of people knew about the pyramids, but now that's coming into the mainstream. There's a lot of whistleblowers talking about other civilizations, right? There's a lot of unique stuff that's no longer pushed to the side or fringe. It's on mainstream news. That puts a lot of fear into individuals. That puts a lot of doubt into individuals who had certain beliefs or ideals. Again, imagine having someone on staff who can very calmly, neutrally explain that, explain it in a way of consciousness, explain it in a way that it's not magical or fearful or scary. And it just kind of tones things down. It just allows everyone to be comfortable with this shift because this shift is unlike anything that anyone's ever been a part of. This is not going to be like a flying car or a different type of psychedelic or a new way to work with employees or some type of new go. No, this is just the biggest shift humanity's ever been a part of. And there's going to be more stuff coming out every week, every month, and it's just going to defy the laws of physics and it's going to make people start to doubt a lot of stuff.
I agree. I don't know exactly where we're going, but I definitely feel like we're at I don't even want to say exactly where we are with it, but I feel it too. I feel like we're shifting in some direction that's really different, certainly different from the world we came into, which I already feel like we're kind of in a different world than we came into. Like the world behind me of all these vinyl records, that world is well beyond. We're away from that. But I digress. I have had a fantastic time talking to you today. I could probably keep going on and on and on, but I will first of all allow you to just talk a little bit about how people can find you and how they can work with you, how they can keep up with you maybe on social media, I'll let you go at it.
I'll give you the links, just for the usual. You'll put the links in the video for the interview. I'd like to steer everyone to my LinkedIn because that's where the post of what a chief consciousness is and what it's not. That's the best kind of description, just to see the interactions, to see the post, to see the descriptions of what it is. I'll even put my email, my cell phone in there for anyone watching. If you have an organization, small, medium, or large, there's things that I can do on I'd like to, could be weekly, could be monthly, but I want to do full time. I want to be in there. I want to be in the intimate settings of your organization and your employees and build this out. Because once an organization does this, all these other organizations are going to take notice, and they're going to wonder what they're missing out on, and they may not understand why, but they're going to start hiring it. So I'd love to be full time, and I would love to help other organizations find the chief consciousness officer. So because it's not going to be a very spiritual individual, it's going to be someone who's very well rounded and still wants to build a business and be profitable and not tear capitalism down. They kind of a combination and bridging the world of both. So they can connect with me on LinkedIn, phone or email. And yeah, appreciate you having me on.
I appreciate you being here, and I'm going to vouch for your posts. I was looking at some of your LinkedIn posts. They are fantastic, very, very interesting, and much like this episode has been, I really appreciate you being here and appreciate you correcting me a number of times here. That again, that's what I always tell everybody. I kind of like when I say certain things that are actually not like where the guest is actually going because it kind of really, at least for me, really clarifies it even more. So I appreciate you in general. I think this is amazing what you're doing, and I'm rooting for you all the way.
Thank you. Yeah, if you any of your listeners or any companies that want to talk, just send them my way.
Will do. Well, you just listened to Charley Johnson. He is one of the chief consciousness officers out there in the world. He's trying to grow not only for himself, but just for everybody out there and this particular profession, which I find highly, highly interesting. And I appreciate you for taking time out and being on Mark My Words.
Thank you,
I
Mark.
am Mark Schmidt. This is Charley Johnson. Thanks again for being here, and I will see you soon. Bye for now. Thank you for taking time out of your busy day to go on a journey with me into entrepreneurship and life on Mark My Words. If you would like to learn more about me and the show, you can find me on LinkedIn at Mark Schmidt or connect with me on Instagram at Nimrod79. Video episodes of Mark My Words, as well as other content, can also be found on the Mark My Words YouTube page. Entrepreneurship can be quite the roller coaster ride. It can be a bit isolating and intimidating, but it doesn't have to be that way. Let's meet here next time at the crossroads on another episode of Mark My Words.